The lantern burned in the window of the cabin every night without fail, a beacon against the vast darkness of the Colorado mountains, and Vivian Kendrick refused to let anyone tell him it was foolish to keep hoping after 10 years. He stood on the porch of his timber cabin, shoulders broad as an ox yoke, arms thick with muscle from years of hauling logs and wrestling nature into submission. His dark hair fell past his collar, tied back with a leather cord, and his weathered hands gripped the railing as he stared down the mountain trail. The year was 1883, and the world had changed considerably since Willow Daniels had disappeared from his life without explanation, but this ritual remained constant. Every evening at dusk, he lit that lantern. Every morning at dawn, he extinguished it. 10 years of the same question burning in his chest. Why did she leave? They had been 21 years old when she vanished. Young, reckless, wildly in love in the way that only people who have never known real heartbreak can be. Vivian had built this cabin with his own hands, every log cut and notched with precision, every nail driven with the thought of the life they would share. He had trapped and hunted through the brutal mountain winters, saved every cent from the pelts he sold in town, planned their future with the certainty of a man who believed love conquered all obstacles. Then one September morning in 1873, he had woken to find her side of the bed cold, her belongings gone, and nothing but silence echoing through the rooms that should have been filled with her laughter. No note, no goodbye, no explanation, just the hollow absence where she used to be. The town of Hays City, Kansas, where Willow had family, yielded no answers when he made the week-long journey there 3 months later. Her aunt claimed she had not seen her. Her cousins turned him away at the door. He had ridden back to Colorado with his heart in pieces, but something stubborn in him refused to accept that she had simply stopped loving him. There had to be a reason. There had to be something he did not know. So he kept the lantern burning, just in case she ever tried to find her way back home. Vivian descended the porch steps now, his boots crunching on the frost-touched grass. October had arrived in the high country, painting the aspens gold and sending the elk down to lower elevations. He needed to check his trap lines before the serious snow came, needed to stock up on supplies for the winter. His nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, and he preferred it that way. Solitude suited a man with ghosts. He saddled his horse, a sturdy gray gelding named Flint, and rode down the mountain trail toward the small settlement of Black Hawk, where he traded his furs. The town had grown in the past decade, swelling with miners chasing silver veins and merchants chasing the miners' money. Vivian avoided the chaos when he could, conducting his business quickly and returning to his mountain sanctuary. But today, as he tied Flint outside the trading post, he heard a commotion down the street. A woman's voice, sharp with fear and anger, cut through the afternoon air. Vivian's instincts prickled. He should mind his own business. He should collect his supplies and leave. Instead, he found his feet carrying him toward the sound. 3 men had cornered a woman against the wall of the hotel. She held a worn carpet bag clutched to her chest, her dark cloak hood pulled forward to shadow her face. One of the men, a barrel-chested brute with a scar across his jaw, was grabbing for the bag while his companions laughed. "I said, give it here, lady. You owe Mr. Peterson for the stage fare, and he sent us to collect." "I paid him in Hays City," the woman said, her voice trembling but defiant. "I have the receipt. I do not owe anyone anything." "Well, Mr. Peterson says different." Vivian recognized the game. Peterson ran a crooked stage line, often claiming passengers had not paid when they had, then sending his thugs to shake them down for double the fare. The law in Black Hawk was too corrupt or too cowardly to stop it. The lady says she paid. Vivian's deep voice rolled across the street like thunder. "Seems to me that settles it." The 3 men turned, sizing him up. Vivian stood 6'4", with shoulders that strained the seams of his coat and arms that looked like they could break a man in half. He had the muscle of someone who had spent years doing brutal physical labor and the calm confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was capable of. The scarred man spat in the dirt. "This is none of your concern, mountain man. I am making it my concern." The tension stretched taut as a bowstring. Vivian did not reach for the knife on his belt or the rifle slung across his back, but his stance made it clear he would use them if necessary. The 3 men apparently decided discretion was the better part of valor. With muttered curses, they backed away and disappeared down an alley. Vivian turned to the woman, intending to make sure she was all right before going on his way. "You should not travel alone, madam." Men like that, she lowered her hood and the world stopped spinning. 10 years had changed her. The softness of girlhood had given way to the angles and planes of a woman who had known hardship. Her honey-brown hair was pulled back severely, and there were shadows under her blue eyes that had not been there before, but it was unmistakably, undeniably her. Willow. Her name left his lips like a prayer and a curse combined. She stared at him with an expression he could not read, something between hope and terror and grief all tangled together. "Vivian," her voice cracked, "I did not think you would still be here." 1,000 questions fought for dominance in his mind, but all he could manage was, "Where have you been?" People were starting to notice them, to point and whisper. Willow glanced around nervously, pulling her cloak tighter. "Please, not here. Is there somewhere we can talk?" Every instinct screamed at him to demand answers right there in the street, to make her explain 10 years of silence and pain. But the fear in her eyes stopped him. Whatever had driven her away, whatever had kept her gone, it had marked her deeply. "My cabin is 5 miles up the mountain," he said roughly. "You can explain there." She nodded, relief washing across her face. Vivian led her to where Flint waited, his mind reeling. This could not be happening. After a decade of wondering, of hoping against hope, she had simply appeared on a random afternoon like a ghost made flesh. He helped her mount, then swung up behind her, intensely aware of how she fit against him, how familiar the scent of her hair was even after all this time. They rode in silence. Vivian did not trust himself to speak, and Willow seemed content to wait. The trail climbed steadily into the mountains, following a creek through stands of pine and aspen. The afternoon sunlight slanted golden through the trees, and somewhere a raven called. It was the same ride he had imagined 10,000 times, the one where she came back to him, but nothing about this felt like the reunion he had dreamed of. There was too much tension, too much unspoken weight. The cabin appeared around a bend, solid and weathered against the mountainside. Smoke curled from the stone chimney. The lantern sat in its usual place in the window, unlit now in the daylight but unmistakable. Willow drew in a sharp breath when she saw it. "You kept it," she whispered, "every night for 10 years. He dismounted and helped her down, his hands spanning her waist. She felt thinner than he remembered, as if life had worn her down to the essentials. "I figured if you ever wanted to come home, you should be able to find your way." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Vivian, I am so sorry. I am so desperately sorry." He wanted to pull her into his arms. He wanted to shake her until she explained. Instead, he stepped back and gestured to the cabin. "Come inside. Tell me what happened." The interior was much as she would remember it, he supposed. Rough-hewn furniture he had made himself. Furs and hides draped over chairs. A large stone fireplace dominating one wall. Clean and orderly in the way of a man who lived alone, with none of the small touches a woman brought to a home. She set her carpet bag down slowly, taking it all in. Vivian stirred up the fire and put coffee on to boil, giving himself something to do with his hands. When he finally turned to face her, his heart was hammering like he had run up the mountain. "Why did you leave?" Willow sank into one of the chairs, her hands twisted in her lap. "My father found me." The words hit him like a physical blow. Her father. Willow rarely spoke of him, but Vivian knew the basics. A wealthy businessman in Kansas with political ambitions and an iron will. A man who had disowned Willow when she refused the marriage he had arranged for her and ran away west instead. A man Vivian had assumed was permanently out of their lives. "I thought you said he wanted nothing to do with you." He did not, for years. But then his political career stalled, and he decided he needed respectability. A daughter married to a suitable man would help his image. Her voice was hollow. "He sent men to find me. They tracked me to Colorado, to the cabin. You were out checking traps. I was alone." Vivian's blood ran cold. "What did they do?" "They told me I had a choice. I could come peacefully and marry the man my father had chosen, or they would make sure you had an accident. The mountains are dangerous," they said. "Men disappear all the time." She looked up at him, her eyes swimming. They described exactly how they would do it, how they would make it look natural. And they promised that if I tried to warn you, or if I ever contacted you again, they would finish the job. The room seemed to tilt. Vivian gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles white. So you left to protect me. I thought if I just went, if I did what he wanted, you would be safe. I thought it would be easier for you to think I had stopped loving you than to spend your life looking over your shoulder. A sob broke through her composure. I was 21 years old and terrified, and I did not know what else to do. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of her, taking her hands in his. They were ice cold and trembling. You should have told me. We could have run. We could have fought. They would have killed you, Vivian. My father is a powerful man. He connections, resources. What did we have? A cabin in the mountains and hope. She shook her head fiercely. I could not let them hurt you. I would rather die than let them hurt you. So you married him, the man your father chose. Yes, the word was barely audible. His name was Richard Sutton, a banker's son, respectable and boring and cruel in small, petty ways. My father got his political alliance, and I got a prison with wallpaper and china dishes. Vivian caught the past tense. He died 4 months ago, pneumonia. I nursed him through it because that was what a wife did, even a wife who felt nothing but relief when he finally stopped breathing. She met Vivian's gaze steadily. I am not proud of that, but I will not lie to you about it either, and you came back. I waited until the estate was settled, until I was sure my father could not contest the inheritance. Richard left me everything, and without a husband to control me, I finally had my own money, my own legal standing. I packed a bag, bought a stage ticket, and I came back. Her voice broke. I came back to see if you were still here, if the lantern was still burning. I came back to beg your forgiveness, even though I have no right to it. Vivian lifted her hands to his lips, pressing kisses across her knuckles. The calluses and scars of 10 years apart were written on both of them, but underneath it all, she was still Willow, still the woman he had loved with everything in him. There is nothing to forgive, he said roughly. You saved my life. I broke your heart. You broke both our hearts, but you did it for the right reasons. He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. I spent 10 years wondering what I did wrong, wondering if I was not good enough, if the life I could offer was not enough. It nearly drove me mad. But if I had known the truth, I would have spent 10 years planning how to kill your father and free you, and that probably would have driven me actually mad. A watery laugh escaped her. You always were protective. Willow, I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. The confession poured out of him like blood from a wound. I tried to move on, to let you go. But every morning when I woke up alone, every evening when I lit that damned lantern, all I could think about was you. I never stopped loving you either. Richard knew it. On our wedding night, he looked at me and said he could tell my heart belonged to someone else. But he did not care as long as I played the part of his wife in public. She leaned into Vivian's touch, her eyes closing. I spent 10 years feeling like a ghost, going through the motions of a life that did not belong to me. The only thing that kept me alive was the hope that someday I might see you again. You are here now. That is all that matters. Is it? Her eyes opened, searching his face. Vivian, I am not the same girl who left. I have been through things, seen things. I do not know if I remember how to be happy. He stood, pulling her up with him, and wrapped his arms around her. She fit against him perfectly, like no time had passed at all. Then we will figure it out together. We will take it one day at a time, and I will remind you how to smile, and you will teach me how to trust that you are real and not going to disappear again. She buried her face in his chest, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I missed you so much. Every single day I missed you. I know, love, I know. He held her while she cried, his own eyes burning. 10 years of grief and longing poured out between them, leaving them both exhausted and raw and strangely lighter. When the storm finally passed, Willow pulled back and scrubbed at her face with her sleeve. I must look a mess. You look beautiful, and she did, in the way that truth always was. The polished society lady was gone, and in her place was the woman he remembered, fierce and vulnerable and wholly herself. She glanced around the cabin again, taking in details she had missed before. You really kept everything the same. I could not change it. It would have felt like giving up. He poured them both coffee, strong and black the way they both liked it. Tell me about the last 10 years, not the bad parts unless you need to. Tell me about anything good that happened. Willow wrapped her hands around the tin cup, warming them. Good things. There were not many. I had a friend, another woman trapped in a marriage she did not want. Caroline. She was the only person who knew about you, the only one I could talk to. We used to meet for tea and pretend to gossip, but really we were just keeping each other sane. A small smile touched her lips. She helped me plan my escape, actually. When Richard died, she was the one who connected me with a lawyer who could make sure my father did not steal the inheritance. I owe her everything. I would like to meet her someday, to thank her. I would like that too. She told me I was brave for coming back, but I do not feel brave. I feel terrified. Of what? That too much time has passed, that we do not really know each other anymore, that I will wake up tomorrow and realize this was a mistake. She set down the cup, her expression painfully earnest. Vivian, I am 31 years old and I have nothing but money and memories. I do not know how to be a mountain man's wife. I barely remember how to be anything other than miserable. You do not have to be anything other than yourself. He sat across from her, his large frame dwarfy chair. Willow, I am not going to pretend the next weeks or months will be easy. We both have healing to do. But I have been alone in these mountains for 10 years, and the only thing that kept me going was the hope that you were alive somewhere, maybe thinking of me. Now you are here, and I am not letting you go again, not unless you tell me you do not want this. I want this more than I have ever wanted anything. Then stay. Stay and let me love you the way I should have been loving you all along. The words hung in the air between them, a promise and a plea. Willow stood and crossed to him, climbing into his lap like she used to do when they were young. He wrapped his arms around her automatically, holding her close. I will stay, she whispered against his neck, for as long as you will have me. That will be forever then. They sat like that as the afternoon faded into evening, neither willing to break the connection. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters and carrying the scent of coming snow. Vivian finally stirred, pressing a kiss to her temple. You must be exhausted. When did you last eat? Yesterday morning, I think. On the stage. He eased her out of his lap and moved to the kitchen area, pulling out supplies. Then let me feed you. It will not be fancy, but it will be hot and filling. She watched him work, moving around the cabin with easy competence. He had always been like this, she remembered. Capable and steady, someone who could build a fire in a blizzard, or track an elk through fresh snow. His hands, so large and strong, handled the cooking utensils with surprising delicacy. You have gotten even bigger, she observed. I did not think that was possible. He glanced over his shoulder, a hint of amusement in his dark eyes. 10 years of chopping wood and hauling water will do that. The mountains do not let you be soft. You were never soft. Neither were you. Not where it mattered. He set a plate in front of her filled with venison stew and thick bread. Eat, then you should sleep. We can figure out the rest tomorrow. The food was simple but delicious, seasoned with herbs he must have foraged himself. Willow ate mechanically at first, then with increasing hunger as her body remembered it needed fuel. Vivian ate across from her, his eyes never leaving her face, as if he was afraid she might vanish if he looked away. I can feel you staring, she said softly. I have been staring at an empty chair for 10 years. Let me look at you. She set down her spoon, her heart aching. I am so sorry I put you through that. Stop apologizing. You did what you had to do. He reached across the table, his hand engulfing hers. Willow, I mean it. No more apologies. We start from here from now. The past is done. Can it really be that simple? No, but we can choose to make it that simple. After they finished eating, Vivian showed her to the bedroom. The large bed was covered with fur blankets, and the room smelled faintly of pine and wood smoke. It was exactly as she remembered, down to the trunk at the foot of the bed where they used to keep their clothes jumbled together. I should not presume, Vivian said, suddenly awkward. I can sleep out by the fire if you would be more comfortable. Willow turned to him, seeing the careful distance he was trying to maintain, the way he was holding himself back. Vivian Kendrick, we slept in this bed together for 2 years before I left. I did not come back to sleep alone. Relief and desire warred across his face. I just do not want to push. You have been through so much. I have been alone for 10 years. I do not want to be alone tonight. She reached for him, her fingers curling into his shirt. Please, I need to know this is real. I need to feel you next to me. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. It was gentle at first, tentative, like they were learning each other again. Then the years of separation and longing crashed over them both, and the kiss deepened into something desperate and consuming. They made love slowly, relearning the geography of each other's bodies, finding what had changed and what had remained the same. Vivian was reverent, his big hands gentle as he traced the scars that had not been there before, the marks that life had left on her. Willow mapped the new muscles, the new lines around his eyes, the silver just starting to thread through his dark hair. When they finally came together, it felt like coming home after a long exile, like finding something precious that had been lost. Afterward, they lay tangled together under the firs, Willow's head on Vivian's chest, his arms locked around her. "I used to dream about this," she murmured. "Every night in that house in Kansas, I would close my eyes and imagine I was back here with you. I did the same. Sometimes I swore I could feel you next to me, and I would reach over and find nothing but cold sheets." His hand stroked through her hair, rhythmic and soothing. "I would give anything to erase the last 10 years for you. Do not say that. They made me who I am now. They taught me what matters and what does not, and they brought me back to you." She propped herself up on her elbow, looking down at him. "Vivian, I know I am damaged. I know I have work to do to heal from everything that happened. But I want to do that work here, with you. I want to build the life we should have had. Then that is what we will do." He cupped her face, his expression fierce. "Whatever you need, however long it takes, I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me now." She smiled, the first genuine smile she had worn in years. "I can think of worse fates." They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in a decade, neither of them was alone. The next morning, Vivian woke before dawn out of habit. He started to slide out of bed, then froze as he realized Willow was still there, still sleeping peacefully with her hair spread across his pillow. For a moment, he just watched her, hardly daring to believe it was real. Then she stirred and opened her eyes, and the soft smile that spread across her face when she saw him drove away any lingering doubts. "Good morning," she said, her voice rough with sleep. "Good morning." He kissed her slowly, savoring it. "I have to check my trap lines today. Will you come with me, or would you rather rest here?" "I will come. I do not want to let you out of my sight yet." They dressed in companionable silence, and Willow dug through her carpet bag to find warmer clothes. She had been practical in her packing at least, bringing skirts and wool stockings instead of the fancy dresses she must have worn as a banker's wife. Vivian watched her braid her hair, the familiar motions bringing back a flood of memories. "What?" she asked, catching him staring again. "I am just happy. I had forgotten what that felt like." She crossed to him and stood on her toes to kiss him. "Then we will have to make up for lost time." They ate a quick breakfast of cornbread and coffee, then headed out into the crisp morning air. Frost glittered on every surface, and their breath misted in the cold. Vivian saddled Flint and lifted Willow up easily, then mounted behind her. The trail wound through stands of pine and along ridges that offered breathtaking views of the mountains stretching endlessly in every direction. "I forgot how beautiful it is up here," Willow said, her voice full of wonder. "In Kansas, everything is flat and brown. I miss the trees, the way the light comes through them in the morning. I could not imagine living anywhere else. Even when I thought you were gone forever, I could not leave. This place has its claws in me." They checked the trap lines, which yielded several rabbits and one fox. Vivian reset the traps with practiced efficiency while Willow watched, remembering how he had taught her to do this when they were younger. She had been squeamish about it at first, but he had explained it was survival, not cruelty, and she had come to understand. "Do you still trade in Blackhawk?" she asked as they rode to the next trap. "Mostly. Sometimes I go down to Denver if I have enough pelts to make it worth the trip. I have a good relationship with a few merchants who do not try to cheat me too badly." "I have money now," she said quietly. "Richard's estate was essential. We do not have to live on trapping alone if you do not want to." He was silent for a long moment. "That is your money, Willow. You earned it by surviving 10 years of hell. I will not touch it. It is our money. What is mine is yours. We will talk about it later. Right now, I just want to enjoy this." He tightened his arm around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "I want to ride through these mountains with you and not think about anything complicated." She relaxed into him, understanding. They had time to figure out the practical matters. Today was just about being together. They spent the morning on the mountain, checking traps and enjoying the solitude. Vivian pointed out animal tracks in the frost, identifying deer and elk, and even the distinctive pad of a mountain lion. Willow asked questions, relearning the wilderness skills that had gone rusty during her years in Kansas. It felt like slipping back into an old coat, familiar and comfortable despite the passage of time. When they returned to the cabin around noon, Vivian skinned and dressed the animals they had caught, while Willow started preparing a meal. They worked in easy synchrony, not needing to talk, simply existing in the same space. It was healing in a way neither of them had anticipated, this quiet domesticity after so much upheaval. "I need to go into town in a few days," Vivian said over lunch. "I have pelts to trade and I need to stock up on supplies before the snow comes. You should come with me. People will talk anyway, but we can get it over with." Willow hesitated. "What will you tell them? About where I have been? The truth, if you are comfortable with it. Or we can tell them it is none of their business, your choice." She considered this. "The truth, I think. Or at least part of it. They do not need to know about my father's threats, but they can know I was forced into a marriage I did not want. Maybe it will help some other woman who is in the same situation. You are braver than you think. Or stupider. I have not decided which yet." He laughed, the sound startling them both. It had been so long since either of them had laughed genuinely that it felt strange and wonderful at the same time. Willow started giggling, and then they were both laughing, holding on to each other as years of tension released in waves of slightly hysterical mirth. When they finally calmed down, wiping tears from their eyes, Vivian pulled her into his lap. "I love you. I need you to know that. I love you exactly as you are right now, scars and shadows and all of it. I love you too. I never stopped, not for a moment." They spent the afternoon simply being together, talking about inconsequential things and weighty matters in equal measure. Willow told him about Kansas, about the endless social obligations and the suffocating expectations of being a respectable married woman. Vivian told her about his years alone, about the brutal winters and the quiet satisfaction of living by his own rules. They were bridging the gap between who they had been and who they had become, finding the common ground where their future could be built. That evening, Vivian lit the lantern and placed it in the window as always. Willow watched him, her eyes luminous in the growing dark. "You do not have to do that anymore," she said softly. "I am home, I know, but I have been doing it for 10 years. It feels right to keep doing it, at least for a while. A reminder that even in the darkest times, we have to keep hope alive." He came to her, pulling her into his arms. "Besides, maybe someone else out there needs to see a light in the darkness. Maybe it will help them find their way home, too." She kissed him, pouring everything she could not say into the gesture. Outside, the wind howled through the pines, and the first snowflakes of the season began to fall. Inside the cabin, two people who had been lost had finally found their way back to each other, and the lantern burned steady and bright in the window. The next few days passed in a blur of rediscovery and adjustment. Willow relearned the rhythms of mountain life, rising before dawn and going to bed when the sun set, her body gradually remembering how to move through the world without the constraints of corsets and social expectations. Vivian watched her bloom like a flower finally given sunlight, the haunted look in her eyes slowly fading as laughter and ease returned. They talked endlessly, filling in the gaps of 10 years. Willow told him about the books she had read to pass the time, the charities she had been obligated to support, the mind-numbing tedium of social calls and dinner parties where everyone said nothing of consequence. Vivian told her about the grizzly bear that had tried to break into his cabin one winter, the eagle he had watched teach its young to fly, the rare moments of perfect peace when the world was blanketed in snow and utterly silent. "I think I missed this most," Willow said one evening as they sat by the fire. "Just talking to you. Richard never wanted to hear my thoughts on anything. He wanted a decoration, not a partner. His loss. Your thoughts were always my favorite thing about you." "Not my stunning beauty," she teased. "That too, but beauty fades, your mind, your spirit. That is what made me fall in love with you." He pulled her closer, nuzzling into her hair. "You used to challenge me, make me see things from angles I had never considered. I missed that more than I can say. Challenge you how? Remember when you convinced me to let that injured fox go instead of killing it for its pelt? You argued that some things were worth more alive than dead, that not everything had to serve a practical purpose. I thought you were being sentimental, but you were right. I watched that fox recover and run off into the trees, and it felt better than any amount of money I could have gotten for its fur. She smiled at the memory. You called me a soft-hearted city girl, and you called me a hard-headed mountain brute. You were both right, she said, laughing. I was too soft, and you were too hard. But together we balanced each other out. We still do. On the fourth day after her arrival, they rode down to Black Hawk together. Willow dressed in her simplest clothes, but even so, she looked out of place among the rough miners and trappers who populated the town. Heads turned as they rode in, whispers following in their wake. Vivian kept his hand at the small of her back, a silent warning to anyone who might think about bothering her. They went to the trading post first, where Vivian had a long-standing arrangement with the owner, a grizzled old-timer named Fletcher. The man's eyes widened when he saw Willow. Well, I'll be damned. Vivian Kendrick finally brought a woman to town, and a pretty one at that. She is my wife, Vivian said flatly, the lie coming easily. They had discussed it and decided it was simpler than explaining the complicated truth. She was living in Kansas, but she has come home, your wife. I have known you for 8 years, boy, and you never mentioned a wife. I am mentioning her now. Fletcher looked between them, then shrugged. None of my business, I suppose. Welcome to Black Hawk, madam. I hope you can civilize this wild man. I would not dream of trying, Willow said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She was nervous, Vivian could tell, but holding herself together admirably. They completed their business quickly, trading Vivian's pelts for supplies and staples that would see them through the winter. Flour, sugar, coffee, ammunition, and various other necessities. Fletcher threw in a bolt of fabric for the lady, winking at Vivian as if he had done him a great favor. As they were loading the supplies onto Flint's back, a woman approached them. She was perhaps 40, with graying hair and kind eyes, and she smiled at Willow. Excuse me, I do not mean to intrude. My name is Martha Holloway. I run the boarding house here in town. I just wanted to say if you ever need anything, or if you just want some company, you are welcome to visit. Willow's expression softened. That is very kind of you, Mrs. Holloway. I am Willow Kendrick. Please call me Martha. We do not stand on ceremony much out here. She glanced at Vivian. Your husband is a good man, if not much for conversation. But a woman needs friends, especially out in these mountains. Do not be a stranger. I will not. Thank you. As Martha walked away, Willow turned to Vivian with surprise. That was unexpected. There are good people here, mixed in with the bad ones. You just have to know who to trust. He helped her mount, then swung up behind her. Did you want to go anywhere else, or are you ready to head home? Home, she said decisively. I have had enough of civilization for one day. They rode back up the mountain in companionable silence, the horse, laden with supplies. The afternoon sun slanted through the trees, painting everything gold and amber. Winter was coming, but for now, the world was caught in that perfect moment between seasons, full of possibility. That night, as they lay in bed, Willow broached a subject that had been on her mind. Vivian, you told Fletcher I was your wife. I did. I hope that was all right. It seemed easier than trying to explain. It was more than all right. But it made me realize we never talked about it. About actually getting married. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her in the lamplight. Is that what you want? I was married to Richard in every legal sense, but I never felt married. Not the way it is supposed to feel. I felt trapped and owned and miserable. She reached up, cupping his fist. But with you, I felt more married in the 2 years we lived together than I did in 10 years with him. A piece of paper and a ceremony do not make a marriage. Love and commitment do. So what are you saying? I am saying that in my heart I have been your wife since I was 21 years old. If you want to make it official, if you want to stand in front of a preacher and say vows, I will do that. But I do not need it to feel bound to you. Vivian was quiet for a long moment, his thumb stroking across her cheekbone. I want to marry you. Not because I think we need a legal document, but because I want to stand in front of God and anyone who cares to witness and claim you as mine. I want everyone to know that you are my wife and I am your husband, and that nothing short of death will separate us again. Then let us do it. This spring, when the snow melts and the trails are passable, we can go down to Black Hawk and find a preacher, and we can have Martha and Fletcher as witnesses. A spring wedding. I like the sound of that. He kissed her softly. Mrs. Kendrick. I am not Mrs. Kendrick yet. Close enough, she laughed, pulling him down for another kiss. I suppose it is. Winter came to the mountains with a vengeance in mid-November. Snow piled up in drifts taller than a man, and the temperature plunged so low that water froze solid within minutes of being poured. Vivian and Willow were snowed in for weeks at a time, the cabin a warm cocoon against the brutal cold outside. They fell into routines. Vivian kept the firewood stacked high and the traps checked when the weather allowed. Willow cooked and mended and slowly transformed the cabin into a home, adding small touches that made it feel lived in rather than merely inhabited. She made curtains from the fabric Fletcher had given her, embroidered pillowcases during the long evenings, arranged the few books they had into a small library on a shelf Vivian built for her. They talked about everything and nothing. They made love with the slow, thorough attention of people who had learned not to take time for granted. They sat by the fire and read aloud to each other, or simply existed in companionable silence, content to be near each other. I never thought I could be this happy, Willow said one night as they watched the snow fall outside the window. Even when we were together before, there was always this underlying worry that something would go wrong. But now, having lost you and found you again, I think I appreciate it more. I know what you mean. There were days these last 10 years when I wondered if I was crazy for holding on to hope. Everyone told me to move on, to find someone else. But I could not. It would have felt like betraying you, even if I did not understand why you left. Do you think we would have made it if I had not been taken? If we had just been allowed to live our lives? Vivian considered this. Honestly, I do not know. We were young and stupid and probably too in love for our own good. We might have crashed and burned, or we might have figured it out. I like to think we would have been all right. I think so too. But this version, the one where we fought our way back to each other, I think it will be stronger. We know what we are worth now. We know what we are fighting for. You are worth everything to me, Willow. Everything. She turned in his arms, her eyes suspiciously bright. And you are my whole world, Vivian Kendrick. Do not ever doubt that. December brought a Christmas unlike any Willow had experienced in years. She and Vivian cut a small pine tree and decorated it with strings of popcorn and dried berries. Vivian carved her a small wooden bird, its wings spread as if in flight. She made him a new shirt from fabric she had been hoarding, stitching it by firelight when he was outside working. On Christmas Eve, they exchanged gifts and shared a meal of roasted venison and vegetables Vivian had stored in the root cellar. It was simple and perfect, exactly what they both needed. I used to hate Christmas, Willow admitted as they sat by the fire afterward. Richard's family would have these elaborate parties, and everyone would be drinking too much and saying things they did not mean. It was exhausting. We do not have to celebrate it if it brings up bad memories. No, I want to. This is what Christmas should be. Quiet and meaningful, with the person you love. This is what I will remember from now on. The new year arrived with clear skies and bitter cold. Vivian and Willow ventured out on snowshoes when the weather allowed, exploring the winter landscape. Willow remembered how to move through the deep snow, her muscles relearning the rhythm. She felt stronger every day, the softness that Kansas had imposed on her melting away to reveal the woman who had once thrived in these mountains. In late January, a thaw came, and with it, a visitor. Vivian was outside chopping wood when he heard the sound of a horse struggling through the slush. He grabbed his rifle instinctively, then relaxed as he recognized the rider. It was Henry Cartwright, the trapper who lived 5 miles south. Vivian, Henry called as he approached. I wanted to check on you before the next storm hits. Make sure you had not frozen solid or gotten yourself eaten by a bear. Still alive, as you can see. Come inside and warm up. They walked into the cabin, and Henry stopped short when he saw Willow kneading bread at the table. Well now, you have been holding out on me, Kendrick. Willow, this is Henry Cartwright. Henry, my wife Willow. Henry swept his hat, his weather-beaten face splitting into a grin. Madam, It is a pleasure. I had no idea Vivian had a wife. She was in Kansas, Vivian said, using the story they had agreed on. But she came back in October. Well, that explains why you look so damned happy these days. I thought maybe you had found a gold vein or something. Henry accepted the coffee Willow offered him, settling into a chair. How are you finding mountain life, Mrs. Kendrick? It is not for everyone. It suits me better than city life ever did, Willow said honestly. Though I will admit I do not miss the feeling of my lungs freezing every time. I stepped outside. Henry laughed. You get used to it or you go crazy. One of the two. He turned to Vivian. I actually came to warn you. There have been cattle rustlers working the area, and they are getting bolder. They hit the Johnson Ranch last week, made off with 20 head. Figured you should keep an eye out, make sure they do not try anything up here. I do not have cattle, Vivian pointed out. No, but you have supplies and pelts, and desperate men are not picky. Just be careful, especially with the lady to look after now. After Henry left, Willow turned to Vivian with concern. Should we be worried? I am always careful, but it is good to know what is happening. He checked his rifle, making sure it was loaded and ready. If anyone comes around causing trouble, you get behind me and you stay there. Understood? Vivian, I am not helpless. I know you are not, but if something happens to you because I did not protect you, I will never forgive myself. So please, love, just promise me you will be careful. She saw the fear in his eyes, the memory of losing her once before. I promise. But you have to promise me the same thing. No heroics that get you killed. Deal. Fortunately, the rustlers never materialized near their cabin. Winter wore on, and by late February they were both getting restless for spring. The close quarters that had felt cozy in December were starting to feel confining, and they were both ready for longer days and milder temperatures. Only a few more weeks, Vivian said one evening, reading the signs in the sky and the behavior of the animals. The snow will start melting soon. We can go down to town, get married properly, and then plant a garden. A garden sounds wonderful. I have been dreaming about fresh vegetables. Willow stretched, working out the kinks from being cooped up. Do you think we should write to my friend Caroline? Invite her to visit once the weather is better. If you want to, I would like to meet the woman who helped you escape. I will write the letter tomorrow. It will give me something to do besides pace around the cabin like a caged animal. He pulled her into his lap, nuzzling her neck. I can think of other things to do besides pacing, she laughed, swatting at him playfully. You are insatiable, only with you. March arrived with all the muddy, slushy chaos that characterized mountain springs. The snow melted in great rushing torrents, turning every creek into a river and every trail into a quagmire, but the sun shone warmer each day, and green things started pushing up through the brown earth. Willow spent hours outside, glorying in the feeling of sun on her face and the smell of new growth. I feel like I am waking up after a long sleep, she told Vivian one afternoon as they walked through the forest, checking for winter damage. Like everything has been gray for so long, and now suddenly there is color again. That is a good way to put it. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. You look more like yourself every day. Not the girl I remember, but the woman you were meant to become. I am proud of you, Willow, for surviving, for coming back, for choosing this life even after everything you went through. I chose you, she corrected. The life is just a bonus. In early April, when the trails were finally passable, they rode down to Black Hawk. Word had spread that Vivian Kendrick had a wife, and the town was curious. People stopped them on the street to introduce themselves, some genuinely friendly, others clearly just fishing for gossip. Willow handled it all with grace, her years as a society wife giving her an ease with strangers that served her well. They found the circuit preacher at the church, a jovial man named Reverend Thompson, who agreed to marry them the following week. I will need 2 witnesses, he said, consulting his schedule book. We have them, Vivian assured him. Martha Holloway and Fletcher from the trading post. Excellent. I will see you both next Sunday then. May God bless your union. They left the church hand in hand, both grinning like fools. It is really happening, Willow said. We are getting married. We are. Any regrets? Not a single one. They spent the next week preparing. Willow altered one of her nicer dresses, a simple blue calico that brought out the color of her eyes. Vivian got a haircut and shaved, though he left his beard because Willow liked it. They cleaned the cabin from top to bottom, as if the preacher and witnesses might actually see it, even though the ceremony would be in town. On the appointed Sunday, they rode down to Black Hawk dressed in their best. Martha was waiting at the church with a bouquet of wildflowers she had picked that morning, and Fletcher showed up with a bottle of whiskey for celebrating after. Reverend Thompson conducted a simple ceremony, the words familiar and comforting. When he pronounced them man and wife, Vivian kissed Willow with such tender passion that Martha dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. "You are officially stuck with me now," Vivian murmured against her lips. "Thank God," she murmured back. They celebrated with dinner at Martha's boarding house, and Fletcher regaled them with stories of his trapping days until they were all laughing so hard they could barely breathe. It was perfect in its simplicity, exactly the kind of wedding they both wanted. As they rode home that evening, the sun setting in a blaze of orange and pink, Willow felt a contentment she had never known before. "Mrs. Vivian Kendrick," she said, testing out the name. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." He tightened his arm around her waist. "Welcome home, wife. I have been home since October. This is just making it official." "True. But it feels different now, does not it? Like we really did start over. Like the past is finally past." She nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. The marriage was a line drawn in the sand, a clear marker between what had been and what would be. They were building something new, something that belonged only to them. Summer arrived with long, warm days and the riot of wildflowers that carpeted the mountain meadows. Willow planted her garden, coaxing vegetables and herbs from the rocky soil. Vivian built her a chicken coop, and they acquired half a dozen hens from a farmer down in the valley. The eggs were a luxury after months of preserved food, and Willow made omelets and custards with the enthusiasm of a child given candy. In June, Caroline arrived for a visit. She was a petite woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Within 5 minutes of meeting Vivian, she pulled him aside and said, "If you ever hurt her, I will track you down and make you regret being born." "Are we clear?" "Crystal," Vivian said, liking her immediately. "But I have no intention of hurting her. I would rather die." "Good. We understand each other." Then she smiled, and her whole face transformed. "She is happy, truly happy. I have never seen her like this, not in all the years I knew her in Kansas. Whatever you are doing, keep doing it. I plan to." Caroline stayed for 2 weeks, and the cabin rang with laughter and conversation. She and Willow spent hours talking, walking through the mountains and sharing stories. Vivian gave them space, knowing Willow needed this connection with her friend. One evening, though, he overheard them talking on the porch, their voices drifting through the open window. "Are you sure you do not regret it?" Caroline was asking. "Giving up the money, the security, the civilized life? I have never been more sure of anything," Willow replied. "Caroline, I was dying in Kansas. Maybe not physically, but in every way that mattered. Here I am alive. I can breathe. I can be myself without pretending or hiding. And I have Vivian who loves me exactly as I am. What more could I possibly need? When you put it that way, nothing. I am glad, truly. You deserve happiness after everything you have been through." When Caroline left, promising to visit again the following summer, Willow cried for an hour. "I am going to miss her so much," she said through her tears. "I know, love, but she will come back, and maybe we can visit her sometime too." "Really? You would leave the mountains to go to Kansas? For you, I would go to the moon if you asked. Besides, it might be good for me to see more of the world, assuming I can convince the world not to kill me." She laughed despite her tears. "You are ridiculous. You love me anyway." "I do. God help me, I do." July and August passed in a haze of heat and contentment. They swam in the cold mountain streams, picked berries until their fingers were stained purple, and spent long evenings on the porch, watching the sun set over the peaks. Willow's garden flourished, providing fresh vegetables for every meal. The chickens laid eggs faithfully. Life was simple and good, and they were both acutely aware of how precious that was. In September, Willow started feeling ill in the mornings. At first, she thought it was something she had eaten, but when it continued for a week, Vivian began to suspect something else. "Willow," he said carefully one morning as she stumbled outside to be sick, "could you be pregnant?" She froze, then slowly turned to look at him. "I do not know. I had not even considered it. When was your last cycle?" She thought back, counting on her fingers. Her eyes went wide. Over 2 months ago. Oh my God. Vivian, I think I am. He crossed to her in 2 strides, his hands framing her face. Are you all right? How do you feel about this? I do not know. Terrified? Thrilled? Both? She laughed shakily. I never got pregnant with Richard, even in 10 years. I thought maybe I could not have children, but if I am pregnant now, if we are going to have a baby, is that what you want? Yes. God, yes. Is it what you want? He kissed her, long and deep. I want everything with you. A baby, a family, a life so full and rich that we can barely contain it. If you are pregnant, I am the happiest man alive. They rode down to Black Hawk a few days later to see the doctor, an older man named Harris who had delivered half the babies in the territory. He confirmed what they already knew. Willow was about 10 weeks along, due in early April. You are healthy and strong, Dr. Harris said, but living up on that mountain you will need to be careful. When your time comes, you should come down to town. I do not want to have to ride up there in a snowstorm to deliver a baby. We will come down, Vivian promised, whatever she needs. On the ride home, Vivian was quieter than usual. Willow finally poked him in the ribs. What are you thinking about? I am thinking about how much can change in a year. Last October I was alone and half dead inside, and now I have you and we are going to have a baby. It feels like a dream, a good dream, I hope. The best dream. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I am going to be a father. I am terrified and excited, and I have no idea what I am doing. Well, I have no idea what I am doing either, so we can figure it out together. That is all we have ever done. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Willow had some morning sickness, but it faded by November, and she felt better than she had in years. Her body changed, her belly swelling with their child, and Vivian treated her like she was made of glass. She found it equal parts endearing and annoying. I am pregnant, not dying, she told him when he tried to carry her across a puddle. I can walk, I know, but let me take care of you anyway. You always take care of me, and I always will. Winter came again, but this year it felt different. They were not just surviving, they were building something, preparing for the new life that would arrive in the spring. Vivian started carving a cradle from a piece of pine, working on it by firelight while Willow sewed tiny clothes. They talked about names and argued good-naturedly about whether the baby would have Vivian's dark hair or Willow's lighter brown. What if it is twins? Willow asked one night, half joking. Vivian paled. Then we are going to need a bigger cabin. She laughed, rubbing her belly. I think it is just one, but either way we will manage. We always do. In late March, as the snow began to melt and Willow's due date approached, they rode down to Black Hawk and took a room at Martha's boarding house. Dr. Harris wanted Willow close by, and Vivian was not taking any chances. They spent 2 weeks in town, Vivian pacing like a caged animal while Willow tried to reassure him that everything would be fine. On April 7th, her labor started. It was long and difficult, and there were moments when Vivian thought he might go insane from helplessness. But finally, as the sun rose on April 8th, their son was born. He came into the world screaming, red-faced and furious, with a shock of dark hair and his father's strong features. He is perfect, Willow breathed, cradling the baby against her chest. Vivian, look at him. He is perfect. Vivian had tears streaming down his face, something he would have been embarrassed about if he had the capacity to care. What should we name him? I was thinking Vincent after you. Vincent Kendrick. He tested the name, smiling. I like it. Hello, Vincent. Welcome to the world, son. They stayed in town for another week, letting Willow recover before the trip back up the mountain. Martha doted on the baby, and Dr. Harris checked on them daily, but both Vivian and Willow were eager to go home. The cabin was where they belonged, where their family belonged. When they finally made the journey, Vincent wrapped in blankets and sleeping peacefully, Willow looked at the familiar trail and felt her heart swell. This is where our son will grow up, these mountains, this wilderness. He is going to be so strong and free, just like his mother, Vivian said, pride thick in his voice. The first months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Vincent was a healthy baby with a good set of lungs, and he kept them up at odd hours demanding to be fed or changed or simply held. Vivian discovered a patience he had not known he possessed, walking the floor with his son in the middle of the night, singing off key lullabies that somehow soothed the baby. Willow watched him one night, her heart overflowing. You are a natural at this. I am terrified every second that I am going to break him. You will not. You are doing great. As Vincent grew, he became the center of their universe. His first smile, his first laugh, the first time he rolled over, all of it was cause for celebration. They took him on walks through the forest, bundled against the weather, showing him the world that would be his inheritance. He seemed fascinated by everything, his dark eyes tracking birds and squirrels with intense focus. He has your curiosity, Vivian observed one afternoon as Vincent grabbed for a butterfly that landed near him. And your stubbornness. Look at how determined he is. God help us when he starts walking. Summer arrived, and with it Caroline returned for her promised visit. She fell in love with Vincent immediately, spending hours holding him and cooing nonsense while Willow and Vivian finally got some uninterrupted sleep. He looks just like you, Caroline told Vivian, except for the eyes, those are Willow's. Poor kid got stuck with my ugly mug. Stop that, Willow said firmly. You are handsome and our son is beautiful, no more self-deprecation. Caroline stayed for a month this time, and it was good for all of them. She helped with the baby, worked in the garden, and filled the cabin with laughter and conversation. When she left, she made Willow promise to write more often and to consider visiting Kansas the following year. I want you to meet my sister, Caroline said. She is going through a difficult time, and I think your story would give her hope. We will come, Willow promised. Maybe in the fall, when Vincent is a bit older and the traveling will be easier. After Caroline left, the rhythm of their life resumed. Vincent grew and changed daily, learning to sit up, then to crawl. He was into everything, exploring his world with fearless enthusiasm that gave his parents matching gray hairs. He is going to be a handful, Vivian predicted, rescuing his son from trying to eat a pine cone. He is going to be amazing, Willow corrected, just like his father. In October, they celebrated the 2-year anniversary of Willow's return. Vivian still lit the lantern every night, though the meaning had changed. It was no longer a beacon calling her home, but a symbol of the light they had managed to keep alive even in the darkest times. Do you ever regret it? Vivian asked as they stood on the porch, watching the stars emerge. Do you ever wish you had stayed in Kansas, had the easier life? Never. Not for a single second. She leaned into him, solid and warm and unmistakably hers. Vivian, you and Vincent are my whole world. This life, this cabin, these mountains, this is where I was always meant to be. Everything that happened, all the pain and separation, it brought us here. And I would not change a thing if it meant not having this. I love you, Willow Kendrick. More than words can say. I love you too. For the rest of my life and whatever comes after. They stood there, wrapped in each other, while inside the cabin their son slept peacefully and the lantern burned bright in the window. The past was behind them, healed by time and love, and the choice to keep moving forward together. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and promise. And in this perfect moment, they had everything they needed. Years passed, marked by the changing seasons and the milestones of their growing family. Vincent was joined by a daughter, Helena, born in the spring of 1886, and then another son, Thomas, 2 years later. The cabin expanded to accommodate them all, with Vivian building on additional rooms and a larger porch where the children could play. Life was full and chaotic and beautiful. The children ran wild through the mountains under their parents' watchful eyes, learning to track animals and identify plants and respect the wilderness that surrounded them. Vincent, the eldest, was serious and thoughtful, with his father's strength and his mother's quick mind. Helena was fearless and stubborn, constantly getting into scrapes that gave Willow flashbacks to her own childhood. Thomas was the peacemaker, gentle and observant, with a gift for understanding people that belied his young age. Vivian taught them everything he knew about surviving in the mountains, how to read weather signs, how to find water, how to set traps and dress game. Willow taught them to read and write, holding lessons around the kitchen table and reading to them every evening before bed. Between the two of them, their children were growing up educated and capable, ready to face whatever challenges life might bring. In the fall of 1890, they finally made the trip to Kansas to visit Caroline. The journey was long and arduous with 3 young children, but they managed. Caroline's sister Anna was exactly as advertised, a woman trapped in an unhappy marriage and desperate for a way out. Willow spent hours talking with her, sharing her story, and offering advice. When they left 2 weeks later, Anna had the beginnings of a plan and the courage to execute it. "You probably saved her life," Vivian told Willow on the train ride home, "or at least gave her a life worth living. I just told her what you showed me. That sometimes the hard choice is the right choice, and that love is worth fighting for." Back in Colorado, they settled into the routines that had become the fabric of their lives. Winters were for staying close, for telling stories by the fire and making memories that would last a lifetime. Summers were for adventure, for exploring deeper into the mountains and teaching the children new skills. Spring and fall were for planting and harvesting, for preparing for the seasons to come. Through it all, the lantern burned. Every night, without fail, Vivian lit it and placed it in the window. The children asked about it once, and Willow told them the story of how their father had kept a light burning for 10 years, waiting for her to come home. "That is so romantic," Helena said, her eyes shining. "Papa never gave up on you." "Never," Vivian confirmed, ruffling her hair, "and I never will. That is what love means. You do not quit, even when things are hard. You keep the light burning, and you have faith that everything will work out the way it is supposed to." As the children grew older, they started to understand more about their parents' history. They knew their mother had been forced to leave, that she had been married to someone else before their father, that she had fought her way back to the life she wanted. It made them proud and gave them a model for what love should look like. In 1895, Vincent turned 11 and announced he wanted to learn to trap like his father. Vivian took him out for his first overnight trip, just the two of them, and they returned 2 days later with half a dozen rabbits and a bond that had deepened. Helena declared she wanted to be a doctor like Dr. Harris, and Willow began teaching her everything she could about herbs and healing. Thomas wanted to be a writer, and he filled notebook after notebook with stories and observations about their life in the mountains. "We did something right," Willow said one evening, watching the children play outside while the sun set. "Look at them. They are happy and healthy, and they know they are loved. What more could we ask for?" "Nothing," Vivian agreed. "This is everything I never dared to hope for. You, our children, this life, it is more than I deserve. You deserve the world, Vivian Kendrick. And I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." He pulled her close, kissing her with the same passion that had always been there between them, undimmed by time or familiarity. "I think we both got exactly what we needed. It just took a while to get here." The best things usually do. More years passed, and the children grew into young adults. Vincent became a trapper like his father, though he also developed a talent for woodworking that brought in extra income. Helena went to Denver to study medicine, coming home in the summers to practice on the mountain folk who trusted her family. Thomas moved to Black Hawk and opened a small newspaper, writing articles about life in the Colorado mountains that were reprinted across the territory. Vivian and Willow, now in their late 40s, found themselves with an empty cabin for the first time in years. It was strange and a little sad, but also freeing. They took longer trips, exploring parts of the mountains they had never seen. They spent entire days doing nothing but enjoying each other's company. They made love in the middle of the afternoon and stayed up late talking like they had when they were young. "We raised good children," Willow said one night. "They are all happy and doing what they love. We did our job. We did, and now we get to do whatever we want." "What do you want, Vivian Kendrick?" He considered this, his dark eyes thoughtful. "I want to grow old with you. I want to watch our grandchildren be born and teach them everything we taught our children. I want to sit on this porch when we are 90 and still be holding your hand. That is what I want. Then that is what we will do." And they did. Grandchildren arrived, first from Vincent, then from Helena, and eventually from Thomas. The cabin filled with noise and laughter again, this time from a new generation. Vivian and Willow spoiled their grandchildren shamelessly, taking them on adventures and telling them stories and loving them with the fierce devotion that had always defined their lives. The lantern still burned every night, a tradition that had outlasted its original purpose and become something more. It was a reminder of faith, of perseverance, of the belief that light could guide you home even in the darkest times. The grandchildren learned its significance, and they carried the story forward, understanding that their family was built on a foundation of love that had refused to break even when tested to its limits. In the winter of 1910, Vivian and Willow celebrated their 60th birthdays and their 37th year of being back together. They were in their twilight years now, their hair silver and their bodies slowed by age, but the love between them burned as bright as ever. "Do you remember the day you came back?" Vivian asked as they sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets. It's cold. "October of 1883. I thought I was hallucinating when you lowered that hood and I saw your face. I remember. I was terrified you would send me away, that you would hate me for what I had done. I could never hate you, even when I did not understand, even when it hurt so badly I could barely breathe. I could never hate you." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically after decades of practice. "You saved me, you know, not just by keeping the lantern burning, but by loving me even when I was broken, by giving me a safe place to heal and grow. I would not have survived without you. We saved each other. That is how it works." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. Outside, snow fell softly, blanketing the world in white. Inside, they were warm and safe, surrounded by the life they had built together. "I would do it all again," Willow said suddenly. "Every hard thing, every painful moment if it meant ending up here with you. I would choose this every time, so would I." Vivian raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her weathered skin. "Every single time I would choose you." The lantern burned in the window, casting its steady glow into the darkness. It had been burning for 37 years, a testament to a love that refused to die, to hope that refused to be extinguished. And it would keep burning for as long as they both drew breath, a beacon for their children and grandchildren, a symbol of everything they had overcome and everything they had built. This was their legacy, not the cabin or the land or the material things they would leave behind, but the knowledge that true love existed, that it was worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth every sacrifice and every tear. They had proven it, had lived it, and now they would pass it on to the generations that came after. As the night deepened and the fire burned low, Vivian and Willow climbed into bed, just as they had done thousands of times before. They lay facing each other, foreheads touching, breathing in synchrony. "I love you," Willow whispered. "Today, tomorrow, and forever." "I love you too," Vivian whispered back. Always and in all ways, they fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two souls who had found their way home and never let go. And outside the window, the lantern burned on, a promise kept, a faith rewarded, a love eternal. The story of the mountain man and the woman he never stopped waiting for had reached its perfect conclusion. They had found their happily ever after, not because it was easy, but because they chose each other every single day. And that made all the difference.